U.S. believes the threat of a Russian invasion of Ukraine is real, as new video shows the Kremlin adding more troops.
He continues to advance his readiness should he choose to go down a military path here.
But there's also signs Vladimir Putin is ready for diplomatic talks, and the changes that could be coming to Colorado law to make it easier to convict criminals and protect survivors of sexual assault.
Our notion of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in a society changes as well.
Plus, a nonprofit in Boulder County is making a big impact in its community by helping people who lost everything in the Marshall Fire.
It feels really awesome to be able to help them in a situation just because they're people.
We're following major developments in the crisis on the Ukrainian border. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he's ready for diplomatic talks with the U.S. and NATO, even though the country is sending mixed messages about its military plan. Thanks so much for joining us for Denver 7 News at 11. I'm Jason Grenauer. Moscow claims it's withdrawing troops, but there are signs troops may be moving to other areas along the border. As Faith Abube reports, the U.S. believes the threat is real and an invasion could happen at any time.
This morning, Russia's military announcing some of its troops massed near Ukraine will return to base, releasing video apparently showing tanks being loaded up to be moved, a possible sign of de-escalation. But Western and Ukrainian officials say it's still too early to tell for now. In the previous 48 hours, Russia's buildup seeming to continue. New satellite images appearing to show Russia significantly increasing military activity on 3 sides of Ukraine. The new deployments include Russian attack helicopters and fighter jets. Analysts estimate up to 150,000 Russian troops are still conducting massive drills near Ukraine.
So far, we have not seen any de-escalation on the ground.
NATO and the U.S. monitoring the situation as Russia is also signaling a willingness to continue diplomatic talks to prevent war. Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking with his Russian counterpart this morning.
We think diplomacy continues to be viable, but we need to see de-escalation in order for that diplomacy.
U.S. officials maintain Russia could order a military attack of Ukraine as soon as this week. In a move that could further escalate tensions, President Vladimir Putin is expected to make a decision after Russia's parliament voted, calling on him to recognize regions controlled by Russian separatists in Ukraine. The U.S. ambassador to NATO says the allies will be closely monitoring what actions, if any, Putin takes to recognize those territories. Putin says he won't immediately make a decision. And we're learning the White House National Security Advisor has commissioned a so-called Tiger Team, a group that's been conducting cabinet-level exercises and has compiled a playbook in preparation for any actions Russia takes regarding Ukraine. In Washington, Faith Abube, ABC News.
Economists say a Russian invasion of Ukraine will have an impact in the U.S. We've already seen prices go up because of inflation and supply chain problems, and a war could make those prices go even higher. Gas prices are already spiking, and they might continue to climb. It's because Russia is the world's second largest oil producer. Global food prices could also go up. Russia is the world's top exporter of wheat. Ukraine also produces wheat and corn. Your stock portfolio could also take a hit since investors know the world economy is all interconnected. Well, people impacted by the Marshall Fire have until Friday to sign up to be part of the debris removal process. They have to fill out a right of entry form. Boulder County officials say they will release details soon about how they're removing the debris. The county already chose a contractor to remove it. The process is expected to start March 1st. We have a link to sign up for debris removal on our website, thedenverchannel.com. Well, hundreds of people have stepped up over the past month to help victims of the Marshall Fire. One group got to work right away after hundreds of homes were destroyed. Denver 7's Veronica Acosta tells us about the impact Sister Carmen's Community Center has made.
Chips, cereal, bottled water. A few of the items you'll find inside of the Sister Carmen Community Center's food bank. But it's the people this place helps that matter most.
Our number one thing is that we put people first.
And over the past month, the priority has been helping Marshall Fire victims, many of the same people this organization has helped for years.
Typically, we serve Superior, Louisville, Lafayette, and Erie. So pretty much 100% of the fire and those affected have been in our service area.
Getting them everything from food off these shelves.
Through our food bank, we're able to provide food, obviously, but also hygiene items, baby items like diapers, formula, that sort of thing.
To clothes, a roof over their heads, even if it's just a temporary one.
We've also been helping people with getting into hotels. I think we've helped over 70, if not 80 families now.
But what's proven to be the most helpful, gift cards to use when victims need them most.
We've distributed over $250,000 in gift cards.
A big part of Sister Carmen's mission with fire recovery has been helping all victims, including those who may not have the same kind of access to help as others.
People who are undocumented, for example, don't have access to the same resources as people who have a social security number. So we're able to provide that assistance even if families are undocumented, because as I said, our mission is to help people regardless of their situation and without discrimination. We have to help them a little differently.
Help them and the hundreds of others impacted.
It feels really awesome to be able to help them in a situation just because they're people.
Giving them a bit more light at the end of the tunnel. In Lafayette, I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
Businesses impacted by the fire are also getting some help. Superior is opening a business assistance center at 5 tonight. It's in the Superior Marketplace near Marshall and McCaslin. The center will have free work and meeting spaces, plus access to computers, the internet, and other office supplies. It will be open Monday through Thursday. Well, happening today at the state capitol, lawmakers will be discussing potential changes to a state law that could help more sexual assault survivors get justice. Last year, more than 6,500 people reported that they were victims of non-consensual sex crimes in Colorado. It means there's one new victim every 80 minutes in our state. Denver 7's Colette Bordelon joins me now in studio. Colette, lawmakers, they want to bring consent into all of this consideration now.
Yeah, Jason, it's part of a bipartisan bill that's aiming to tackle the definition of sexual assault in Colorado's law. It's not expected to face much opposition this afternoon. Sponsors tell me it's on the fast track to the governor's desk. And for sexual assault cases called prevalent yet underreported and underconvicted, survivors say bringing the concept of consent into the courtroom, it's long overdue.
My name is Kim, and I'm a survivor of sexual assault.
No matter when or where.
I was raped in Montana at gunpoint in 2007.
Cases like Kim's, who now lives in Colorado, deserve their day in court.
The lack of consent is the crux of sexual assault.
Newly filed Colorado House Bill 1169 would change the language of state law. Right now, consent isn't even mentioned in the statute, which says, quote, causing submission of the victim by means sufficient to cause submission against the victim's will.
Our definition of consent for rape or sexual assault is out of date.
Bill sponsor Matt Soper calls the language dated at best, confusing at worst.
Jurors struggle to understand those terms, and yet the judge really couldn't turn to them and say, it's about consent.
Lawmakers want to change the definition, making it more specific, knowing the victim does not consent.
And the most difficult cases to get convictions on are rape and sexual assault cases.
The hope is the language change changes the likelihood of a conviction in the courtroom for cases that already have lots of variables for a jury to consider.
Not everyone responds the same way to a sexual assault, but jurors don't necessarily get armed with that information.
For survivors, it's another step in an uphill battle.
The updated language in the statute more accurately and clearly reflects the reality of sexual assault.
Using the definition of consent to clarify their cases.
Kim says the language change is an improvement, but believes the phrase knowing the victim does not consent would be stronger if it was written as without the consent of the victim. That aligns with the FBI's definition of rape, Jason.
All right, Colette, but even with this new definition going through the criminal justice system, when we're talking about cases, things like domestic violence or sexual assault is very difficult. We just heard them called some of the most difficult cases to prosecute. Why is that?
There's so many reasons, and they can all be specific to that certain case. There's so many complexities that those with the Colorado District Attorney's Council say it's become obvious they needed more support on such cases, which could lack physical evidence or witnesses and emotional or trauma responses that might result in plaintiffs acting differently than a jury would expect. That's just a handful of considerations in the courtroom, all on top of the re-traumatization of testifying. And I'm told no matter the outcome of a case, the penalty for a perpetrator, it'll never match the harm done to a survivor.
Colette Bordelon in studio today. Thank you. We will stay on top of this bill and let you know what happens out there at the legislature. Thank you. And it's important for survivors to know that they're not alone and there is help available. If you need someone to talk to or you need help reporting an assault, you can reach out to the Blue Bench through the number right there on your screen. You can also find medical care, shelters, and other resources on the website youhavetherightco.org. Well, Governor Jared Polis is launching his re-election campaign today. He'll make a stop in Pueblo, where he started his campaign originally 4 years ago. He and Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera will also make other stops in Colorado on this 4-day tour. The primary is on June 28th. The election is November 8th. You won't need a mask in indoor public places in Boulder County later this week. The county is ending its mask mandate at 5 p.m. Friday because of a decline in COVID-19 cases. Masks also won't be required in schools. A new housing trend is trying to make home ownership more affordable. Still ahead, we're taking a tour of a dream home built in less than a month. Plus, Canada is taking measures to end demonstrations linked to pandemic restrictions and mandates.
We have another dry and mild day today, but a cold front is making its way into the state. We'll talk more about snow totals and just how cold it's going to get here for the metro when we return.